welcome to the August episode of the Columbia Scuba's Dive with Purpose webinar series. The Dive with Purpose committee's been putting on these all year, and we're starting to think about topics for next year as well. So if you've got ideas, put them in the chat or something like that, because we'll take that into consideration. And we're going to have this one. Kris Mattingly, one of the instructors here with Columbia Scuba, is our lionfish hunter and just recently got certified as an instructor for the lionfish hunting specialty offered by Patty. So he enjoys the lionfish hunting, he enjoys fixing food, and we're going to learn a little bit more about lionfish. So Kris, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There you go. All right. Yeah, thanks everybody. So yeah, we're going to talk about invasive lionfish, about, kind of why they're invasive and what we can do about it, and some other stuff. Just also want to share that part of our philosophy at Columbia Scuba is dive with a purpose. And for this one, ocean health is one of the areas that, of course, taking care of lionfish, getting them out of the environment, helps save our reefs and the environment there for that, especially since they're invasive in our part of the world. They're marine animals, and so also getting rid of them will help save the other populations of the other fish. And I'll talk a little bit about that more through the presentation. So let's talk about an introduction to lionfish. So their actual scientific name is the Pteropus volitans, the red lionfish, or the zebrafish. They're also known as, the other one is the Pteropus miles, and that's the common lionfish, or often referred to as the devil firefish, probably depending on what part of the world that you're in. And so we have, I think we have quite a few folks on with us tonight from the Philippines. And as we can see the map on the lower right corner there, this map shows where they're actually native to. So they're native from the Indo-Pacific Ocean and the Red Sea area, which the Philippines falls right in there. So for you guys, they're actually not an invasive fish, they're a normal fish. You probably, when you dive, you probably enjoy seeing them. They are beautiful fish. They have those big old feathery spines on the sides there. They're real pretty. They're not very afraid of people, and they just sort of hang out. They can be found in many habitats, ranging all the way from 1 foot to more than 500 feet deep, obviously way deeper than a scuba diver can go, but that's where they are. We've also found that during the daytime, the adults like to hide in the deeper water, and then at nighttime, they come up a little shallower to feed. Some of the most common locations that you can find them, and they're actually found in almost any environment, whether it's just sandy beds or rocks or what have you, but the most common ones are artificial reefs, such as a sunken object, a ship that was sunk on purpose to be kind of an artificial reef. They're found in the natural coral reefs. They like to hide along the walls and under ledges. They like to kind of hang out there. They like to hang along shorelines like piers and docks, lobster traps, any kind of, really it's a feature. They like objects and features. They don't like to just sort of be out in the open. So those are some common places that you can find them. For the group, do you think that lionfish are poisonous or are they venomous? If you want, you can open up the chat and put a P or a V, P for poisonous or V for venomous. And we'll kind of look at those results here in a little bit. And then also they taste delicious. I think Yuri can testify to this. They have kind of a mild, buttery, they're very flaky whitefish. They're mild. I've heard them compared to hogfish. To me, they kind of taste a little bit like snapper. Some people think they taste like grouper, but really they're just a mild whitefish. They're very tasty. And so if you said that they're poisonous, they're not. They're venomous. They're actually part of the broader scorpionfish family. that also have some spines on them, and the venom is what can get injected in you. But that also means that the meat is not poisonous. It's totally safe to eat. So that's our yummy lionfish there. And so let's talk about the invasion. There's an animated GIF on the right side there. It's thought that lionfish were first introduced by rehoming them from personal aquariums. We don't know for sure how they got over into our part of the world, over in the Atlantic and in the Caribbean Sea. But as you can see in the animation, in 1985, we have the first sighting over on our part of the world, and that was off the coast of Florida. There's a documented report in 1992 where Hurricane Andrew helped to set about 6 of them free from a personal aquarium in someone's home when the hurricane floods that came and sort of liberated them, so to speak. Also in 2000, they actually broke a record. As being the first successful marine invader of the Atlantic Ocean. And so there's been other invaders, but they're the first ones that have been successful at breeding and expanding and getting a foothold, which is not a good record for them to hold, but it is a record. By 2015, they've been spotted on every reef in the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. So at this point, they're fully engulfed. They're all over the place. So why is this a problem? Well, there's several reasons. The first of all is that lionfish grow fast. So they're possibly even the fastest breeding fish in the Atlantic Ocean. They're, especially if you compare them to other sort of native medium-sized fish like groupers and other snapper, other predators that are in the area, takes them longer to grow. So if lionfish eat the young, then they can't grow up and become the larger fish that sort of help take care of the reefs or become seafood for us to eat and things like that. The adults can grow up to be about 18 inches long, and that's about 45 centimeters in the metric system. They can begin reproducing in their first year of life, which is also something that's kind of unique. Some of the other larger fish take a little bit longer before they can begin to reproduce. So these kind of things do cause a problem. One female can produce about 2 million eggs a year. They've seen different numbers from 20 to 30,000 about every 4 days. And you could probably look it up on YouTube. There are some videos out there. Lionfish have a really kind of neat mating sort of ritual or dance. They'll go face to face with each other, and they'll sort of puff out their sides there, and they'll go around. And as they get up to the surface, when they get really close, the female will release her 2 egg sacs with those, 20, 30,000 eggs in them. And then the male will flip upside down and shoot into the water and fertilize them. And there's this kind of nasty tasting film that's around that egg sac, which is another protector for those eggs that keeps predators from eating them. And then they'll be up in the top channel of the water, and they'll just float along. And then after about a week, they'll hatch wherever they happen to be. And then they'll stay in the upper level of the water, real small, tiny. And then after about a week there, they'll begin to go on down to the bottom, and they'll settle on a reef or some object or something, whatever they can find. And then they'll begin hunting and eating other prey in that area. So very, very rapid growth, and their breeding habits are just kind of crazy. So they're sort of out of control. They also are voracious eaters. So there's been studies in the lab and on reefs that show that lionfish are kind of generalist predators. That means they'll eat just about any other fish that they can find or get in their mouth. They'll eat crustaceans and usually small fish. They can actually eat a fish that's more than half their own body size. Their stomachs can expand to about 30 times its empty size. And they've actually dissected lionfish, and they've counted more than 60 small fish in some of their stomachs. So they really, really can eat a lot. And at this point, because they're so new to the area, small fish will often, as you can see in the picture, will often just congregate around them, because when a lionfish isn't hungry, it just sort of sits still and floats around a little bit. It expands its feathery spines on the side and everything, and it looks like it's just a big protector. So little fish don't feel scared around it. They'll swim around it and just sort of hang out until the lionfish gets hungry, and then it just simply opens its mouth and sucks them right in. And before they know it, they don't know what's happened, and it's just devoured the whole lot. Also, because they're so new to this area, predators like sharks and eels and barracuda don't yet associate them as something that they can eat. They're just not on the menu. And it's thought that it might take thousands, if not tens of thousands of years for local fish to adapt and figure out the little ones that, it's not safe to be around this guy, or for the predators that they can go ahead and eat them. And that's probably why over in their natural habitat that they're not such a big deal, is because predators over there have realized that they can eat them, and they kind of keep them under control. They keep them at bay. And so you probably won't see a whole lot of them over in that part of the world. And again, as I said at the very, very beginning, I think before we even started recording, it's probably actually something that you look forward to seeing, or that you hope to see when you're over in that area diving, because they're such a beautiful fish. Some of the fish that they eat perform valuable functions for our ocean. For instance, groupers and snappers. Now, they don't eat the big ones, but they'll eat the babies. And when they eat the babies, they can't grow up into juveniles or adult fish. And then that seafood for humans is not there for us. So it sort of creates competition for humans as far as seafood and things that we can eat. There are reef grazers, and there's cleaner fish out there, like parrotfish and gobies and wrasse and others that sort of keep the reefs clean. They'll go and they'll chew on the reefs, and they'll eat the algae off of the reef material out there, so that sunlight can come and provide nutrition, or provide sunlight for the zooxanthellae, which use photosynthesis. They create oxygen and other food for the coral. And so if that doesn't happen, then the coral can begin to suffocate. They can die off. Just not a good thing. In addition, some of the fish that they eat are cleaner fish. They could be cleaning stations where, say, shrimp and wrasse and gobies kind of hang out, and larger fish and sharks and turtles and other animals will come by, and the little ones will be out there swimming around. The large fish or whatever will come by, and it's sort of a safe space where these animals coexist for a short amount of time. They know they're not on the menu. They'll come and they'll attach to these other larger animals, and they'll clean them. They'll remove parasites and other things that are bad for them. So they actually help keep the other fish healthy. But when those cleaner fish are not there, that function doesn't happen. So there's lots of things that happen that affect the reef and affect other fish in ways that you might not have even thought about. In addition, we've talked a little bit about the venomous spines. And whenever we talk about venom, you might think of things like snakes, scorpions, bees, or spiders, which are all venomous. The difference here is lionfish spines don't actually inject anything. There's a sheath that's on them. It's a piece of skin, and whenever that skin gets pulled down, it tears and it releases the venom, and there's kind of grooves that are in those spines. So if you hit one, then it's just venom that's just sitting on that spine, but it'll inject into your skin, and it is a neurotoxin. It's protein-based. It's also very painful, but it's not likely very deadly. There's been few reported cases of deaths, but again, it can affect different people in different ways, much like a bee sting. Some people are highly allergic to bee sting. Other people, you get a bee sting, no big deal, right? So lionfish could be in the same category. We don't know how everyone reacts to them. So the key thing there is, if you see one, if you're not equipped to take it out or get rid of it, stay away from it, keep your distance, maybe report it so that someone else can come in and take that thing out.
Kris,
That
if I may,
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing that with if you are stung by a lionfish, one, the venom itself is neutralized by heat, which I mentioned in chat, but
Yep.
uh, the wound itself is very prone to infection, which is one of the #1 medical problems with lionfish stings.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you do get stung, use hot water, not scalding, about as hot as you can stand it, somewhere between 110, 114 degrees. And if you got stung on the hand, you might dip your hand in that hot water for about 30 minutes and keep replenishing it to keep it hot. You'll probably get relief after about 6 to 10 minutes. Keep your hand in there, keep the water warm, and that will neutralize that protein-based venom. It'll break it down so that it doesn't affect you any longer. And then, of course, treat it just like any cut or anything else. You've been in the ocean, you've got other bacteria and stuff that might be on there. So as Yuri pointed out, make sure you clean it well, put some antibiotics on there. If your symptoms get bad, go see your doctor, especially if you're not sure how it affects you. If you don't treat it, normally it can last for about 6 to 9 hours, that excruciating pain. It can kind of cause you to lock up and you might not be able to move, and definitely swelling and other stuff. So if you can avoid them, avoid them. If you're hunting them, go hunt them, just do it safely. They have 18 venomous spines on them. I have a little demo thing here. There's 13 up on the top, and that is their dorsal fin. There's a smaller fin right behind it that doesn't have any venomous spines on it. The tail's not venomous at all. They have pelvic fins on the lower sides, and there is one venomous spine on each of those, but there's also some other little spines, but they're not venomous down there. They also have a pectoral fin, which is on the side. And so oftentimes that's the one that you'll see splayed out to the side. There's no venomous spines on here. So that one that's there, you don't have to worry about that. And then on the back side, there's 3 venomous spines on their anal fins. So be careful if you grab them from the back, even though you're like, oh, I'm clear of this one. They've got these on the bottom here too. So just want to kind of point that out. Let's see, then what else? So what else is it a problem? Ocean reefs. So the reefs are in the balance. I've already talked about how the other fish are affected in the area, and those fish are what take care of the reefs or live in the reefs, and that's their home. Our ocean reefs take up less than 1% of the entire ocean, yet more than 25% of marine animals actually live in those reefs. So it's really, really important to take care of them. They provide safety for juvenile fish, also tourism. We found that, taking care of nice reefs attracts tourists who bring dollars to spend in the local economies. So there's a lot of good reasons to take care of those things. So what can you do? Well, divers, if you can, please safely spear them and remove them from the water. I would like to point out to never ever feed them to predators from the end of your spear. I used to think that we might be able to teach predators to eat them, and I think that's kind of a common misconception out there, is that you can, if you can train them, get the taste in there and they'll like them and they'll want to eat them more. But really what you're teaching them is that a diver coming by with a spear has easy food. You're not really teaching them how to hunt. You're just giving them a free meal. And then what ends up happening is that the predators in the area start associating divers with free food. They become aggressive toward divers. I myself, I've been diving and hunting lionfish, and I've had sharks. Fortunately, they were nurse sharks, so they weren't real dangerous, but they did get aggressive around me and started pushing me around and trying to get to the tip of my spear. And in some cases, they would even circle around the area where the lionfish was, kind of pointing him out and waiting for me, like, hey, come on in here, go get this guy. And then whenever I shoved my spear in there, they got all anxious and everything and just kind of pushed me out of the way and tried to get to him. So that can injure the shark or an eel or whatever it is that you're trying, if you did try to feed it to them, because the tip of your spear, it's got points on it, and you could injure that animal by trying to feed it to them. So in the event that you do catch one and maybe you don't have a zookeeper or a containment unit to put it in, don't feed it directly to the animals. You can find a safe spot where there's nobody at or no fish at, not nobody, and then make sure it's dead, remove it from your spear, maybe hide it underneath of a rock or a ledge or something, and let the local animals find it on their own. You can cut it up. If it's a small ones, you can cut them in half, jab them and kill them to make sure that they're actually dead. But again, I just want to point out, never feed them from the tip of your spear. You're just teaching them bad habits. I've heard stories where eels have gotten aggressive around people with spears, and they've actually because they're animals, right? They're wild. They get in this frenzy, and the only thing they can think about is, I'm going to find food. They've got big old teeth and swimming around you, and you've got them all excited because they think you've got something, or you've got them in your zookeeper. You know, if you're out there diving and you've got a zookeeper and you've got lionfish in here, I've actually heard stories where eels went into the zookeeper to eat the lionfish, and then they end up getting pissed because they're trapped inside the zookeeper, and you don't want to make an eel mad. And then other people have been injured and bit by them. So again, I just want to point that out. Don't do it. You're not teaching them any good habits. You're teaching them bad habits. If you're a non-diver or diver alike, and you're in an area where there's seafood restaurants and maybe there's the availability of catching them, ask for them. See if they're on the menu. Try and drive up demand for them to be put on their menus. There's places where you can find fish. There's organizations that you can go to, like reef.org, and I'm going to show a list in just a minute of some references and sites. I'll try to copy those and put those in the chat menu here. Let's see. Also, there are cookbooks, like reef.org actually creates a cookbook, and they sell this online, Amazon, what have you. Lionfish are very tasty. There's a ton of ways of fixing them up. Ceviche is an easy way, lionfish tacos or whatever. If you have an aquarium, they are a very pretty fish. They do well in aquariums as long as you keep the temperature and salinity right and you feed them, but they will get big pretty fast. I already talked about how fast they grow. They eat a lot, so they can be expensive fish as they get larger. If you get tired of it and you don't want it, find a safe way to get rid of it. Sell it back to a pet store or a larger aquarium. Donate it to ask a local zoo or aquarium that has a tank and see if they want it. Maybe make some dinner out of it. I don't know. Whatever you're kind of comfortable with. But the one thing I ask is, please don't try to rehome it into the ocean. That's the last place that we really want them, unless you're in the right part of the world, and then that's fine. But over here in the Atlantic and the Caribbean Sea, we don't want them over here.
Kris, let's curious on people's involvement and how they've encountered lionfish either in the water or on the plate. So if you've hunted lionfish, put a 1 in chat. And then if you have eaten them in whatever form, you could put a 2.
Yeah.
And then if you had a really good recipe, Kris would probably be interested in it. And Yuri too, because he's a hunter. So
yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and move up to the next slide with the references, and I would like to look through the chat window and see if there's any questions that came in there, and see what some of the comments are there. So yeah, we do have some people from the Philippines and South Carolina. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. Let's see. Yep, Yuri, all the way down to 300 or 500 feet, a little further than we can dive, unless you're a tech diver or you have a robot or a submersible.
Well, it's funny because when I got trained, my instructor, he told me about this old man who's like in his 60s, who basically goes down in a rebreather every other day down in Bon Air and basically supplies most of the restaurants. He brings like 4 of those huge extendable keepers with him to like 300 feet and just takes them by like 40, 60, 80 pounds plus at a time. And I'm like, damn, that's a way to retire.
Nice. Yeah, especially if you're a tech diver. Actually, my instructor for the Lionfish Hunter, the course director, he's from Bonaire. And one thing, he shared a story with me that he dives technical and he was down deep. He did a deco dive, which meant that he was going to have a 1 hour deep deco stop before he could come up. And whenever he speared it, after he got it, he went to put it into the zookeeper. Well, and whenever he did, let's see, let me just get a spear. So whenever he did, he had the lionfish on the end of the spear. He was here, and he tried to kill him, and he took his knife and he tried to jab it. But whenever he jabbed it, he got too close because he used a short dive knife and actually got poked in the hand. And for a 1 hour long deco stop, he had to endure the pain. And then finally come up.
Miserable.
Yeah.
I think you and I have the same spear though, because you use the 5-prong, don't you?
Yeah, I have several spears. I have this is my favorite. This is a Lionfish Slayer. This one has a little trigger on it that you flip to the side, and the spear is actually inside and extends out of it. So
I've seen those. It's a keeper in a little PVC thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Kris?
I consider getting one of those. I have a longer keeper, and I use a Hawaiian sling spear that's 3 parts, so I can adjust the length of it based on where I'm diving.
Yeah. So I usually keep a Hawaiian sling in the side just to poke them or have as a backup. And then I take my primary, I put it in there, and then I just zip it in place, and there it's safe. And then I have the elf style, which they use in Bonaire. If you go to Bonaire, this is the only style you can use as an elf.
Yep.
You have to be with a local. You have to be certified. They're serial numbered. There's a lot of restrictions there, but the locals really do keep them under control there.
Dominican Republic was probably the nicest place because they didn't have as many restrictions, so I could just bring my spear and take them for days.
Yeah, so that's a good point too. If you are going to go hunt them, check with the local regulations to make sure you're not violating something. Because if I had taken my spears to Bonaire, one of our landed and customs would have checked them. They would have confiscated them because they're not legal.
I think they can
no
also
spear
confiscate
fishing.
all your dive gear as well if you break those
could.
regulations in Bonaire. They're really, really strict.
They are.
Kris, Pam was asked a question in the chat about the buying and selling of lionfish, and I'm assuming, Pam, that is in as aquarium pets versus meat for the table. So Kris, do you know anything about, can they even be sold for pet stores for aquariums?
Well, I don't know about for aquariums. I mean, like if you catch it live, they might. I don't know if it's legal or not. I know that selling them as food, they can go anywhere from $10 to $30 a pound if you sell them to restaurants. So that guy that you were talking about, Yuri, who does all that tech diving and gets a ton of them, yeah, he's making pretty good bank, and the restaurants are loving it.
I was told estimated over 70 a year that's in retirement. I'm like, damn.
Wow. Nice.
Goes a long way in Bonaire.
Mm-hmm. Good. Pam and Hayden, they've hunted and eaten them. Hano and Dee, they've hunted and eaten them. So what is that, Pam? That's the U.S. has made it illegal to buy or sell them in the U.S. Yeah, I don't know what the laws are for pet fish. Yeah, there might be some restrictions now on pet just because they are invasive, so they may not allow that. Yeah, so good deal. All right, I was trying to copy, and every time I tried to click on those, it would advance to the next slide. I was trying to put all the references in the chat so that people could copy them for their own. I think if I end the slideshow, I'll be able to do that. So hang on a second.
Also, reef.org is great. I think they're the ones who either organize or the biggest advertisers of the Lionfish Derby down in Florida, where literally it's a competition for who can take the most.
Yeah, they do. Usually it's about twice a year. They'll host Lionfish Derbies at different locations. There's some along West Palm Beach, some in the Keys area. So yeah, if you want to get involved, check them out. The Lionfish Central is kind of a good spot too. They list a lot of derbies as well. I think they even have an app. You can report sightings at reef.org and lionfishcentral.org as well. So just there's a lot of good information. And I found a whole bunch of other sites I didn't even list on here that I didn't use, but.
So Kris, do you know if Charleston Scuba does very much with lionfish hunting off the coast of Charleston?
I do not. We tried to dive with them one time and we got washed out by rough seas. We didn't actually get to go. So I know that places down in the Panhandle along Florida, they do have charters that will take you out specifically for lionfish hunting. Down near Miami, the Keys area, they do have some charters as well. They may have some in West Palm, but I'm not sure. You could probably find a private charter in a lot of these places, or contact, or even check some of the sites like reef.org and lionfishcentral.org, and they might have some more information on those.
Almost every time I've been on a boat off the West Palm area, somebody has been hunting. So
yeah,
they've had there. And I know Jamie has said that when he's dove some of the wrecks off the coast of South Carolina, he's seen some, and I think there's some hunters too, but I don't know, Pam, I haven't heard of dedicated hunting trips, but I think there are hunters on some boats.
Yeah, I know when we go to Belize and dive down there, almost every dive master that takes you out to the local areas has a spear with them.
And from rumors when it comes to Florida, I've heard that the most abundant source of lionfish is in the Panhandle. That's just from the rumors I've heard. I cannot corroborate because I haven't actually hunted Florida yet.
Yeah. Well, and after the pandemic or during the pandemic, when people slowed down on diving, their numbers actually did start to come up. So it's still important for divers, get out there, hunt them, to just take them out of the water, no matter how small or how big they are. Oh, hey, you don't have to turn your camera on or speak, but any of our folks from the Philippines, do you guys eat them down there, or are they just sort of a pretty fish that you enjoy seeing if anybody dives or does any of that kind of stuff? If you want to post in the chat, that would be fine too. Just kind of curious what your thoughts are, because here we're talking about them being invasive, but they're where you're at, that's their natural habitat.
I think if I remember, many of y'all are marine biologist students, so maybe there's a new curriculum topic you can add to your studies there to learn about lionfish in the Indo-Pacific compared to what you've heard about the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean.
Yeah. Well, if you're not in the water yet, if you're going for marine biology, chances are you will. So anyway, hopefully in your neck of the woods, you find some that you can see while they're out there in their native habitat. Because I don't know if you're allowed to hunt them or fish them. But that's really about it. Thanks everybody for showing up and giving us your attention. Hope
Kris,
you learned something today.
Thank you for doing this. And I know one of the things, 25,000 eggs every 4 days. That I knew they laid a lot of eggs, but just seeing those numbers, that was an eye opener for me. September's webinar will be September the 9th. It will be by Jennifer Rawlings. She's the aquarium curator for the zoo in Columbia, South Carolina. They have some corals that were part of this rescue project down in the Florida Keys before disease overtook a lot of the stony corals. and she has a holdings there. And that's just part of a project that a consortium of zoos and aquariums are doing to help preserve the gene pool for the corals off the Florida Key Reef Tract before they all got consumed by disease. So she'll be talking about that project, and for those that live in Columbia, something that is in our own backyard. So that'll be September 9th. Posted earlier up in chat a link to the website where you could find more about the upcoming webinars and the Zoom links for those as well. So
Tim, if I could just add one more thing, and Kris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I remember from my training that from those 25,000 eggs, about 90% of them actually reach adulthood, which is more than any marine animal.
Yeah, they have a very high survival rate because of that nasty tasting film that's on the egg sac, keeps predators from eating them. And then of course, most of the fish they just don't think they can eat them yet. So
I just want to point out that's why they're an even bigger problem, that it's so many of them survived from such a high breeding rate as well.
Mm-hmm. They definitely do. Well, Tim pointed out the next webinar. We also, if you're local in the Columbia area, we're going to be doing a shore cleanup on September 18th, downtown Columbia along the waterway. I'll look for more information on that. If you're also local, we do some other things too. We do ocean health, we do dive against debris. We just did a cleanup at Jake's Landing last weekend. We do some coral reef conservation specialties. We do shark fin-a-thons. I teach lionfish hunting. We're going to try and get some trips going out for that. We do fish surveys. We had an earlier webinar about fish ID and surveys. Also, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. We do adaptive diving. It's just a fun hobby. It's a good thing to get into, and you can do more than just simply have fun. You can help out in the community and other areas. So again, thanks everybody for joining us.